The humerus is next. We're going to talk all about this bone right here, the upper arm bone, and its bony landmarks. So this coincides with page 50 in your trail guide book. Now, the humerus is actually pretty easy. We have some landmarks at the top, and then we have some landmarks at the bottom. And then as you can see, the middle is actually pretty smooth, except for this one roughened area right here. That one has a name. But for the most part, this is covered with muscles. So we don't have any attachments necessarily, except for, along here and right there. The attachments happen mostly at the head of the humerus and at the base of the humerus. So let's get started with the screen share for your book. Okay, I'll move that up a little bit. All right, so we have the head of the humerus. It looks like a head, see? Very much like a head, looks a little like Snoopy in this position. This is the head of the humerus, which actually makes this the neck of the humerus. Okay, if something has a head, it typically has a neck, but it's not listed in your book, so I won't make you learn that. All right, so, almost dropped it. So we have the head of the humerus here. Now, I have this oriented slightly differently than what you're looking at. So let me just turn it around here. Okay, in order to face the same direction. All right, so we are looking at this view right here. See, that matches up with that. All right, so here's the head of the humerus. Now, if we are looking at bony landmarks, we actually have two near the head, okay? These are a little harder to see. Here's one, and here's the other, okay? They are a greater and a lesser tubercle. So the biggest one, the one right here that you can see towards the back of the humerus here, towards the posterior humerus, this is the greater tubercle. Okay, this one right here. And you can see it over here too. You can see it's much bigger. I'll show you that right there. This whole thing is the greater tubercle. So then you have another one that's smaller, and that's in the front. That one is the lesser tubercle, this guy right here. Okay. In between them, if you can see where my pen fits right there, is a groove. It is called the intertubercular groove. The intertubercular groove is between the tubercles. But this also has another name. This groove right here is also called the bicipital groove because the tendon for the biceps brachii muscle goes right in here. It fits very nicely right in between those two tubercles. So we can call it the intertubercular groove or the bicipital groove, okay? Either way, it's a groove in between two tubercles, the greater tubercle and the lesser tubercle. Now, off of those tubercles, you actually have little crests, okay? Pardon me. The crests themselves are difficult to see because they're not very crestish, to be honest. They're just little extensions, really, of the lesser tubercle and of the greater tubercle. And those are called the crest of the crest of the greater tubercle and crest of the lesser tubercle. And again, all they are really just these little extensions here and here of the tubercles, okay? Now we get to the middle of the humerus. which is really along the shaft of the humerus. So the skinny part of the humerus here is called the shaft of the humerus. And what we have right there where it's nice and rough, see, I'll show you right there, that is the deltoid tuberosity. The deltoid muscle attaches right there. It has its own landmark, deltoid tuberosity. A tuberosity is another like sticky outy lump on a bone that's a little bit bigger than a tubercle. So that's what a tuberosity is. And that is the deltoid tuberosity because it attaches the deltoid muscle there. Okay. Now we go to the inferior portion of the humerus. The inferior portion of the humerus looks completely different on the anterior than the posterior, as you can see. And that is because we have the radius and the ulna of the forearm articulating here and here. The forearm, we will get to in another lesson. However, we do have muscles like biceps brachii and triceps in this lesson. So in order to talk about those, we have to talk about the ends or the distal end of the humerus here, okay? So that's what we are going to do. Now it's hard to hold this up in front of the screen and discuss this at the same time. So I'm going to put my humerus down so that I can just talk about what's on the screen. Okay. Let me just double check something. Yes. Okay. Biceps and triceps are part of this lesson, as well as latissimus and trapezius and a lot of other superficial muscles, but only triceps and biceps are going to be on the humerus here. Okay. All right, so as we work our way distally onto the humerus here, we have the anterior landmarks, and as you can see, there are quite a few. So let's start with some of the easy, more obvious things, like this right here. This piece is called the trochlea. And trochlea actually means pulley. Okay. So we have trochlea here, and it kind of looks a little like a pulley, right? And then this bump right here is called the capitulum. So we have the trochlea, which is this part, and the capitulum, which is this part. Now, if you take a look at this illustration here, the trochlea continues all the way around the humerus to the back. So if I show you, right here is the trochlea, and this is the capitulum. But if I kind of take the bone all the way around, you see the trochlea goes all the way around. The capitulum doesn't, but the trochlea does, okay? So you can see it on both sides. So it's here and it's here. All right. Now, on the anterior, we have the coronoid fossa, and it's actually bigger than your book makes it look. You see that dip right there? There's a nice big shadow right here. That's the coronoid fossa. Now remember, we had the coracoid process of the scapula. This is where I tell you that you absolutely must be able to spell these, because one letter can make a big difference between a coronoid and a coracoid. So spelling does count in anatomy. Sorry. All right, so there's the coronoid fossa. So we have the trochlea, we have the capitulum, we have the coronoid fossa. Okay. We also have a small fossa on the opposite side called the radial fossa, but you cannot see it on my plastic bone. It just isn't there. So it's just a very, very small fossa on the other side called the radial fossa. All right, then we have medial and lateral condyles. Now, condyles usually are a bit larger in the body. However, this is the humerus, so it's a fairly small bone. So the medial and lateral condyles are roughly here and here. We don't talk about them much. What we do talk about are the epicondyles. Remember, epi means upon. So this right here is the epicondyle, the medial epicondyle. And over here is the lateral epicondyle. And these are very easy to see and they're very easy to palpate. This big one right here, that's the medial epicondyle. And this slightly smaller one on the opposite side here is the lateral epicondyle. And if I hold my elbow up like this, right, to get our bearings, that's the elbow. That's not part of this. That's not part of the humerus at all. But right here, you see that bump right there? That's my medial epicondyle of the humerus, right there. So you can see it on me, and you can feel it on yourself. And over here, this one, this other bone right there that I'm pointing to, you can see, that's my lateral epicondyle. Again, you can feel it on yourself. See, they're right across from each other, right? As they are on the humerus here. Medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle. You can see they're here and here. So I encourage you to palpate those on yourselves as we do this, because we will be palpating in class anyway. Cool. So we have the medial epicondyle, we have the lateral epicondyle, and then the actual condyles are right about here. We also have these lovely little ridges. If I turn this to the side, you can see that it's rather sharp. Okay? Look at that. Nice and sharp. So these are ridges, and they are above the condyles. So we have a medial supracondylar ridge. Supra meaning above. And a lateral supracondylar ridge. So everything here, of course, you can see is named medial, 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 and everything over here is lateral, 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 right? Lateral supracondylar ridge, lateral condyle, lateral epicondyle. Okay. From a posterior view, you can still see the medial supracondylar ridge and the lateral supracondylar ridge. You can still see the medial epicondyle and the lateral epicondyle. Right? But you can't see the coronoid fossa and you can't see the capitulum. You can see the trochlea. And then the trochlea goes around into this big fossa right here. This one is called the olecranon fossa. The olecranon fossa receives the olecranon process of the ulna, and that's this. That's your elbow. So let me show you my, I have just one. I have an ulna and I have a humerus attached. They're just held together by a little wire you can see. So on the anterior side, here's the coronoid fossa. And you can see when you flex your elbow, it folds together like this. And then on the posterior side, here's the olecranon fossa. And this right here is the olecranon process. And watch what happens. That fits in nicely right there when you straighten your elbow. See? But this piece right here is that. See? Your elbow, the pointy part of your elbow is the olecranon process. See? And it fits into the olecranon fossa when you straighten your arm. Pardon me. And that's it for the landmarks of the humerus. We have a couple of other things like groove for the ulnar nerve and we had a groove for the radial nerve. I'm not interested in you knowing those right now. We haven't talked about nerves at all, so that doesn't really matter. We're going to put the muscles on before we start talking about nerves. So those are the landmarks that I would like you to know. And if we go to our visible body, again, ta-da, we can move this all around. This is a rather odd looking humerus, I must admit. It is really long and it has a very small head. It's all right, it doesn't really matter. Again, you can move it in all different directions. Remember, you can tap on an area and it tells you what it is. In this case, it's the shaft of the humerus. We have, oops, I'm gonna have to do it this way. There we go. There's the trochlea. And if you want more information on the trochlea, it doesn't tell you that much. It just tells you it's medial portion of articular surface, which is true. Click on the capitulum, right? Medial epicondyle, coronoid fossa. Okay. Over here we have, oh wait, let me turn this around. Over here we have the deltoid tuberosity, okay? And again, you can look over here on the side of your screen and you can click on one if you want it to show it to you. It'll be in light blue. So I want it to show me the radial groove. So there it is, there's the radial groove, okay? So we're gonna spend some time with visible body on our own at home, quizzing yourself on the landmarks one by one. And also, we have some apps with visible body that we can use. And I will talk a little bit about those later. They give you 3D view right on your desk. So it's a augmented reality feature, and it's really cool. Okay, so that is it for the landmarks of the scapula and the landmarks of the humerus. And that concludes this lesson. Have a good day.